Well, hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so putting in a run of beans, obviously we've got the canes here, and this is the inside of the bean sticks. Now, it's always advisable to put the actual bean plants inside the canes. Now, you don't need to. I always put the plants about kind of 6 inches apart, just like that. Now, you don't have to put one every stick. You can put more than one going up a stick if you wish. And because I've got so many plants, I'm going to put a few more in than every other stick. But all you need to do is get them out of the pot. Obviously you can see the roots are formed quite nicely at the bottom, and you can plant them about the same depth as they were in the pot, with the plant tilting towards the stick. Then obviously this little runner that you've got here will then start to twist its way around, and they always twist as you look down the cane. They always twist up, going up in a clockwise motion, so they'll always go sort of round, like sort of going up like that, which is the opposite way to what you would think, because obviously the way that the sun goes across the sky, you would think they'd go in the opposite direction, but in fact they actually go the opposite. Don't ask me why, I don't honestly know. But anyway, just point them towards the cane, like that. The reason for planting them actually in the inside is as you're walking up and down in the picking your beans, you know, there's less chance of you actually you know, knocking the plant. If the plant's on the outside, when you're walking up, you could potentially knock it with your foot. That's obviously to be avoided. Now, plant them so that they're facing the sticks, as I've said, like that. You don't want the ground to be sort of too hard. You know, you want it reasonably nice and loose, because then the bean roots will be able to get into the ground really quickly and easily. Most certainly, if the ground hasn't, if the ground is dry, most certainly water them in. I'd water them in anyway, to be honest with you, just to get them off to a good start. But you most certainly, with beans, you need to keep them watered on a regular basis for at least the first couple of weeks until they got established. Then as soon as the beans start to form, as soon as they start to flower, you need to water them sort of at least every other day in the UK, unless it's rained obviously, and then they'll grow up away. Now any other bean, like climbing beans, are all planted in exactly the same way. You can plant 1 or 2 plants per cane, and then they'll sort of climb away up the cane. Up the cane. They always rotate in the same direction, but you know, if they do start to flop, what you might need to do is just wrap them round just to get them going. But as soon as they've wrapped around the post, you know, and they've got a grip of the post, then away you go. But what you might need to do in the first couple of weeks is just come up and just make sure any that are not grown up a cane, just encourage them to grow around the cane, and then as I say, as soon as they've got a grip of the cane, they'll be away, and they'll all grow away. Okay, so it's time to put the tomatoes into the greenhouse. This is probably the latest I've ever done this, to be honest with you, but with one thing and another this year, I've just been too busy to get on with it. So what I normally do is put a layer of grass at the bottom, then chicken manure, and then put the soil back onto the top, taking some of the soil out, and then I get a rotation soil. But this year I'm not able to get my hands on any of the grass cuttings and stuff. So what I'm going to do is just dig in a load of compost onto the top about sort of 4 to 5 inches of compost into there, dig it all in, and then I'll be planting the tomatoes straight in to this border here first, and then I'll be putting them into this border here as well. Okay, so what I've done there is I've dug in a couple of barrows worth of compost in there, straight out the compost bin, which is basically just recycled vegetable matter. Dug it all in and got it all ready, and I've put the canes in. The things today exactly the same. I do this the same every year. I've had comments before to say these are a bit close together, but trust me, you can grow tomatoes this close together. This is about as close as you want to get them. The canes are about kind of 18 inches apart, and this is pretty much the maximum amount of tomatoes you need to get in here. Obviously you need to keep it vented, you know, to make sure you've got good airflow, and you always keep it watered, and you've got plenty of compost and, you know, sort of good matter in the ground. But so what I'm going to do now is what I normally do is I plant cucumbers along the back, and then I grow the rest of it tomatoes. But this year I'm having a bit of an experiment because I've got another greenhouse which I'm going to grow some cucumbers in, and so rather than planting all of the cucumbers in here, I'm going to plant 3 cucumbers here, so 1, 2, 3 there, and then the other 4 are going to be tomatoes this year, and then the rest of these will be tomatoes as well. So what I'm going to do is grow. The reason I'm growing them at this end is the grapevines coming up that side, and it's a bit more dense over there than it is kind of over here. So what I'm going to do is grow the cucumbers here. The only problem that you've got growing cucumbers with tomatoes is tomato plants' water requirements are considerably higher than cucumber, and what you can do if you're not careful is overwater cucumbers. So basically what happens is if you overwater them, they damp off and then the plant dies. And I've got one example here actually. This is one of the cucumber plants that I bought, and because of this weather that we've had going hot and cold, it got slightly overwatered, and unfortunately that's what a cucumber looks like when it's damped off. Obviously the rest of them that I've got here and the ones that I've got outside are perfectly healthy, but unfortunately I've already had one damp off. But anyway, so what I'm going to do now is plant the tomatoes in to the bed here. Okay, so as soon as you've got your canes securely put into the bottom and obviously tied in at the top, all you need to do then is plant the tomato plant into the ground. Now the best way to do that is, this is a moneymaker tomato, the moneymaker being the variety. All you need to do is the bottom stalks like that. If you want to see this in a little bit more detail, look at June part 3 that was published this time last year, and in there you'll see me doing that. But what you want to do is take off the bottom few stems like that, because what you'll get is the tomato plant will throw out additional roots down the stalk here, which will do 2 things. The first one, it'll allow the plant to generate more roots, which will anchor it better into the ground, and secondly it'll be able to get more moisture and goodness into the plant, and therefore obviously you'll get more and more healthier tomatoes. Now as you can see, this ground is really nice and loose, so all I need to do is plant it into the border. Now what you want to do is plant the tomato deeper than it is in the pot, so the ground level is going to end up there. So obviously at the moment the ground level's here. I want to plant it about 4 inches deeper than it is in the pot. Now if your tomatoes plants are slightly bigger than this, what you can do is plant it even deeper, but as you can see, that's the level of the soil there. So I'm going to put it into the ground and plant it so the level will basically be about there, and then additional roots will come from here. That's one of the best tips I can tell you for growing tomatoes, because that will make a massive difference to the crop and the health of the plant. So plant it about 2 or 3 inches away from the post. There's no reason to tie it up yet. When you get to the first fruit truss, I don't know if you can see, but this one's actually got the first fruit truss actually forming there. As soon as you get to the first fruit truss, when that's got a bit bigger, what you want to do is just tie that against the post underneath the fruit truss, because obviously that's where the weight will be. And as soon as you've done that, give them a really good water and get them started off in the border, and then they'll grow like the clappers as soon as you've got the roots in. They'll be away, and they'll be up the pole to the ceiling in the greenhouse before you know where you are. Okay, so that's all of the tomatoes in this side. I changed my mind about the cucumbers. I'm going to put them on this side of the greenhouse, sort of under there. I'm going to make a tray under there and put them in pots. But that's all the tomatoes in. I've got 2 Gardener's Delight on the end there, which are the small cherry tomatoes. Then all the rest of these are money makers. So all I need to do now on this side of the greenhouse, exactly the same. Dig a load of compost into the border under there, and plant in there the Alicante. Okay, so it's time to pot up the jalapenos now. Now these have been growing on in these square tubs. As you can see, they're a little bit limp and a little bit long. Now that's basically because they've not been getting quite the right amount of light as they should have done. So I'm going to pot them up into these. These will be the final pots. These are sort of, I don't know, 7-inch pots, 6-7-inch pots. So all I need to do is, I'm sure they're not pot bound yet, but you can see they're not. But again, I'm just going to pot them down. Really, these shouldn't need any kind of support, to be honest with you. Now, some chilli plants do need a bit of support, but these have gone a little bit limp, I think, because basically they're planted quite close together and they're not getting quite as much light as perhaps they could do. So just to help this one along a little bit for now, I may well take this out later, but I'm just going to tie that up against a stick just so it gets a little bit stronger, and then I can, more likely than not, I'll probably take the stick back out actually in a couple of weeks' time, but just so it doesn't sort of flop over too much. I'm just going to put that in there for now, and then that'll hold it upright. So I'm going to pot them all up into these pots now, and then these will eventually go on the shelf at the back of the greenhouse, which is where I grew them last year. I've got quite a good crop growing there. Now the things with chilies, peppers, anything like that, you do need a reasonable amount of sunlight. Things like cucumbers don't like too much light. They can get actually sunburned, but things like peppers and tomato plants and stuff like that, really you can't have, within reason, you can't have too much sunlight on them. Now tomato plants can get a little bit scorched if you're not careful. But all you need to do is you can get some paint to put on your greenhouse if it does get that hot. To be honest with you, I've never had to bother with that because I don't think it gets that sunny in the UK. But all I'm going to do is pot up the rest of these jalapenos, and these 6-inch pots will be more than enough for them to grow in this year. Last year I actually had them in slightly smaller pots than this, and they grew on quite well. So if you haven't got any 6-inch pots, something like a 5-inch pot or something like that will be more than enough. Obviously what you need to do is make sure that they're well watered. Again, I'm just going to give this one a little bit of a cane just to support it for now. And then these will grow on quite nicely. They should grow to something like 2, possibly 3 feet in height. And before you know where you are, they'll be flowering and fruiting. So that's the jalapenos, and I'll show you those in a few weeks' time when they've developed a bit further. Okay, and the remainder of the jalapenos are going to go in these trays which will sit on the shelf at the back of the greenhouse. So the reason I'm putting them into these trays, I made these a few years back, is because you can get, you know, sort of more plants into a smaller space, and you know they've got, you know, sort of more space, if you like, to you know, sort of get the roots out. So all I've done is I've put about 2 inches of compost at the bottom of this tray. Just place the jalapenos in equally spaced. I'm going to put 5 in each, and then all you need to do then is, as soon as you put them all in, is basically go back with some more compost and basically fill in the gaps like this. Just making sure that you've got all of the all around the edges and stuff like that. So just sort of push it in with your fingers, like that, so to make sure that the roots are in contact. Give it a good watering, and like that, and then that'll sit on the, like a window box kind of you know, kind of idea, and then they'll grow up the back of the greenhouse. The one thing that you need to make sure of is, I don't know if you can see, but there's holes I've drilled 6mm holes all the way down. You need to make sure that there's plenty of drainage going through onto the you know, so if you overwater them, the water will sort of drain straight through and out the bottom. And the other thing is as well, what you need to do is sit them up slightly off the shelf. Two main reasons. One, if it's in contact with the shelf, you could potentially block the hole off. So obviously you want the water to drain out freely. The second thing is as well is obviously you don't want the shelf to be wet all the time, so you need a little bit of airflow in there. So what I'm going to do is just put a little block of wood up under either side like that, just to lift it off the shelf by about ½ inch or so, and then the jalapenos will sit there. So I'll just finish these off and I'll show you what they look like when it's finished. Okay, so just to conclude then, so these jalapenos, there's 6 of them here, those will be grown in the other greenhouse, and then these 10 here, as you can see, they're now in the trays, sitting just above the shelf, so there's an inch or so gap there with some blocks either side. So we've got 6 in each box, it's actually worked out to. So we've got 6 in there and 6 in there. They are a bit floppy at the moment, but with a bit of sunlight they'll soon stand right back up. And just a quick update on the cayenne pepper, as you can see. We've already started to get some fruits on there. So that's what the peppers look like at the moment. Okay, so I'll just give you a quick look around the plot. The mint is growing really nicely. It's almost taking over this plot. I've moved the thyme out of the way, the rosemary and everything up here. As you can see, we've had absolutely loads of rain. This water but's absolutely full, and we've had somewhere in the region of about 7 or 8 inches of rain this week. So the ground's had a really good soaking, which has been really good. And things like the comfrey, as you can see over there, I'll show you in a minute when I come round, and the comfrey here as well, it's really grown in the last week, so that needs to be cut down, and I'll be showing you that probably in the next video. I'm going to make some comfrey tea for the tomatoes. I've put some of the dahlias in, and these are the sprout flowers, or flower sprouts, which I'm going to be, these are the Scottish kale, which will be going in this week, so they've been hardening off out here. And so I've moved the thyme over to here for now. I'm not planting that in yet, but thyme really needs to be kept reasonably dry. It's one of the plants that doesn't really like to be watered too much. But anyway, I'll be planting that in the ground before too much longer. The asparagus, as you can see, has really grown. This has grown almost 2 or 3 inches every day, and it's kind of up to almost 5 foot now. So that's grown really well. The weeds are absolutely incredible. The amount of weeds that have come through in the last week even astounded me. But we've got quite a bit of bindweed down here. I don't know if you can see, that's what bindweed looks like. And I'm plagued with that. I've got it all underneath the path and in the raspberries, but I'll need to go through and dig all that out before I put the sunflowers down there. Raspberries have really come on in the last week as well. Something else I need to sort out. The strawberries, I planted some more strawberries in here because some of them weren't doing particularly well, but as you can see they've really come on in the last couple of weeks with this rain. It's really helped them. But what I have got, I don't know if you can see there's a bit of a bulge. Some potatoes that were left in last year are growing through underneath, so I have to keep going up and pulling them out. Moving on to the potatoes. Potatoes are doing really well. They've come up quite well. These are the so you've got the 2 rows of Maris Piper there, and they've come through really well, as you can see. The weeds, these were all hoed up last week, believe it or not, but with this rain that we've had, it's encouraged the weeds to come back. These are the Purple Majestic, these few here. Now those leaves were quite purple when they first come through, but they've sort of lightened up a bit now. They've come through, but that's the Purple Majestic, and then obviously all the rest is kestrel. So those have all come through. I need to come through as soon as the ground starts to dry off. I need to come up here and hoe these up again before the plants get too big, to get rid of the weed. So those are the potatoes. The onions have done really well. Now I can see that some of the onions are missing. I've noticed here there's a few missing spots. So what I'll do is the onions I've got up at the greenhouse, I'll bob them in the missing spaces. You can see just there, there's a couple there that haven't come through particularly well. I've actually noticed that the parsnips have now actually come through in the last week or so. See if I can actually see one there. There you go, there's one. That's a parsnip, as you can see, the one with the serrated leaf. So what I need to do is get all these weeds out of the way. But because the weather's been the way it has, I've not really had a chance to come up yet. But when the parsnips first come through like that and they're small, you really do need to keep it well weeded. But the parsnips are coming through. The ones in the greenhouse are basically ready to go in as well. So what I need to do this week or next is weed all this out and then see where I've got any missing spaces in the parsnip lines, and then obviously put the spares in. The sweet peas have come on really well. They've grown sort of 6 inches or so since they went in. So you just need to make sure that any that sort of drop off start to go across the path, just push that back underneath the net to get them to grip onto the railing. Now in here we've got some success, and also we've got plenty of weeds. I don't know if you can see the green weeds all over the ground, so that won't be too bad. I can quickly hoe over those and sort of get rid of those. This is the spinach. These sort of 2 rows here, then it turns into 3 rows at the end there. So the spinach is coming on really well. This is the broccoli, or the calabrese, and they've really grown this week. It's amazing what a bit of rain will do. These are the flower sprouts, and they've also come on really well, and the Petrarch kale along this side as well. So what I need to do now is, obviously the Scottish kale will go in front here, in around front where this line is, or just behind the line, and then I'll put in the second row of second 2 rows of spinach. So the spinach will be either side of the path, if you like. But the weeds aren't too bad in here, but as you can see, you need to get on top of the weeds as soon as you can, because the little weeds soon turn into large weeds. But that's what the first tunnel looks like. Okay, moving on round here. There'll be a clip probably in either in this video or the one before. It's of me putting in all the gourds. So we've got the courgettes, pumpkins, and butternut squashes just round the corner. Rhubarb is starting to go back a little bit. We're still getting some of these flower shoots on. Anything that's resembling that on rhubarb, most certainly pull it off straight away, because you don't want the energy to go into there. You want it to go into the rest of the plant. But there's some more at the back there I need to sort of pull off. But the rhubarb's done really well. Obviously what'll happen with the rhubarb now is it'll die off, and then it'll you can still sort of pull it, but what you want to do is leave on about 1/3, if not more, otherwise you take so much strength out of the plant. And then the rhubarb will die down, and then it'll come back again in something like August time. So that's the rhubarb. Now in the second tunnel, this is one of the projects for next week as well. This is all rather overgrown now, but the spinach has pretty much run to seed. I kept pulling the heads off, but it's determined to run to seed now. All of this Scottish kale, I'm basically leaving it for the seed. You can see all the seed heads forming on there, so there'll be loads of seeds coming from this. But so what I'll do is I'll take all the seed pods off, and then the rest of the plant I'll dispose of, or give it to the chickens to eat. So that's the second tunnel. Now what I'll be able to do after I've got all of that out of there is plant some more spinach, which is going to go in by seed, and then this front bit here. So you shouldn't grow brassicas in the same spot twice. So where there's the spinach there, I'm going to put some Scottish kale, and then at the back where the Scottish kale is now, I'll be putting in some rows of spinach in there by seed. I'm just going to go straight in with seed on that. The cleansers at the front are all starting to grow quite nicely. So these are self-set calendulas. I'll also be putting in some sunflowers along here, like I always do. But they've grown on quite well in the last week. Just moving up here, this is where obviously the runner beans are going in. I've done a bit of a clip here of putting some in, but I'll need to put in the rest tomorrow, so I'll put all the rest of them in. This is the other side of the parsnips. You can see little parsnip plants here. But as I say, I need to get that weeded out. Onions are looking all right. You know, there's a missing spot there, so I'll put a spare onion in there, and there's a couple there that aren't coming through too well. So again, I'll need to go through this and weed it. There's quite a lot of weeds. The one thing when it rains, like it has in the last week or so, is it brings the plants on really well, but it also brings the weeds on. And so as soon as things start to dry out, what you need to do is get in there and have a really, you know, sort of mad weeding session and sort of get all the weeds out before they get too established and seed. So that's the other side of the plot, the potatoes again. You can see here, these are the strawberries, and what I've got under here is, just pull that through carefully, you can see potato plants growing through. I've also got some bindweed as well in there. So unfortunately, I don't know why, but the bindweed is really has been a real pain this year, and I keep digging loads of it out. I've probably dug about 2 wheelbarrows full of bindweed out, either from here or from where the this part here that I've just dug through, and it's still coming basically. So it's a constant battle, but all you can do is just keep fighting it. Now this is the second set of bean canes. This is probably the first time you've seen them. So this ground here was all dug over, rotavated. I've put a load of straw in, but unfortunately, I don't know if you can see, in the straw there was loads of corn seed. So I've now got a really nice crop of corn growing everywhere. So what I need to do is dig this over again and get all this corn out before I put the beans in. The reason I've separated the beans is down the bottom end there I'm going to be growing the runner beans, and here I'll be growing the climbing beans. And if you're growing 2 crops which are very similar to each other, like gourds or beans or things like that, you know, if you're going to save the seed off pumpkins and butternut squashes, for example, you always grow them separately so that they don't cross-pollinate. If I grew climbing beans down there along with the runner beans, then I couldn't guarantee that the seed off them would be truly runner beans or climbing beans. So what I do is grow them separately, and then all being well, they shouldn't cross-pollinate with each other. But the running beans are going to go, the climbing beans are going to go in this bit here next to the greenhouse, and then obviously all the runner beans will go down the bottom there. So I don't know if you can see, but there's like a green, almost like somebody's set a lawn here. So I just need to go through that and dig that out, and which shouldn't take too long, around the bean canes, and then get the beans in there. And this is the comfrey plant here. As you can see, it's up to almost 6 foot now, so this needs to be cut down to make some comfrey tea for the tomatoes. And here we've got the asparagus plants that were planted last year. As you can see, they've grown quite well now, so they need to be potted up so that they can grow on this year. And there'll be some more asparagus plants to put in for next year. Obviously you need to grow them for about 2 or 3 years before you put them in where they're going to be. The lemon balm and the mint and everything here is growing really well, and I've got a hollyhock at the back there, which is the Black Knight hollyhock, so that's going to come up with a nice big black stem of flowers hopefully in the next few weeks. But so that's doing all right there. And these are the onions I was telling. These are the spare onions that I grew in a tray, so I can basically pull them out and bob them in where I've got some missing spots down the bottom. So that's what the allotment looks like on the 21st of May. So, I hope this episode was of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you got below, and I'll always get back to you, and I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Up and Garden.